Good evening, my friends. Tonight's tale is entitled Over Then Under. I've always loved motorbikes, always had motorbikes, ever since my father used to let me ride pillion on his old Royal Enfield, holding tight around his waist. Whenever I'm not working, I'm out on my bike. I love the feeling of freedom, the closeness to nature and the thoughts of new adventures. I used the weekends to ride to a Pacific area of beauty where I would pack up my bike and go for a leisurely stroll, taking the odd photograph if something caught my eye. Some weekends I would pack my bike with my tent and the rest of my camping gear, and on a Friday night after work I would head off to a campsite, perhaps around the Peak District, and just chill out before heading back on the Sunday afternoon. You see, I have always preferred the outdoor life, and as I get older I'm finding that I prefer my own company. Now what I always look forward to is what I call my supreme touring trip. It involves me taking an extended leave period from work, which isn't okay with some people, but my boss is also a very good friend of mine and he understands my need for adventure. And so every 2 years or so he allows me 8 to 10 weeks off that need that time to tour other countries on my bike. The planning and the preparation for such trips takes quite a while, some countries longer than others, what with all the bureaucracy, getting visas, insurance, permits, etc., etc. But each time I know that when I'm at that trip, it will have all been worth it. This trip found me in India, a lot further afield than I have been before, but it was highly recommended by quite a few on the Bikers Forum I subscribe to. So 5 days ago found me landing in India and then travelling to Goa, where I hired a BMW GT motorbike, which, having checked it over, found it to be in very good condition. I had hired the bike for 3 weeks, and I was lucky enough to be able to hire all the equipment I would need from a local adventure store. So, armed with a full tank of petrol, plus a full can, maps, a tourist guidebook and a light heart, I set off on what I hoped would be the journey of a lifetime. The past 5 days had been brilliant. The hills with their winding roads, a biker's dream, and now and again as I passed through a small village, the aroma of various spices, and then back out into the emptiness of the countryside. It was about 11 in the morning, as I was cruising along at a gentle speed, that I came to a wooden bridge, and that's when I saw him. A very old man, dressed in rags, standing at the far side of the bridge, just standing like a statue, just staring hard at me. I have to admit, it made me feel a little uncomfortable. I knew I had still a good way to go if I was going to set up camp before it started to get dark. And anyway, he was most likely just one of the thousands of beggars and wanted me to stop and give him some money. I looked back at him and realised he had not moved at all. Still stood there just like a statue and still had that hard stare at me. I decided that I would go slowly across the bridge, stop with him for just long enough for me to give him a few rupees. Then this feeling of unease I'm feeling at this moment would go. So I put the bike into first gear, twisting the throttle very slightly. I gradually released the brake so I could slowly move across the bridge without causing him any harm. I was just over halfway across when I again looked at him, but this time the blank stare had gone to be replaced by a strange grin, and this time he was holding his arms out towards me as if beckoning me towards him, as if he was saying, "Come, come." And at that exact moment it happened. The whole bridge started to shatter and collapse around me. It was all so loud, it sounded like hundreds of cracks of lightning, so loud it felt like all hell had broken free. Although it all felt like everything was happening in slow motion, in real time it was happening so fast I had no time to react in any way. As a bike with me under it fell through the disintegrating bridge, some of the jagged edges of the wood tore through my motorbike outfit, through my body, right down to the bone. I think I screamed. Or did I? After what seemed like an eternity of pain and falling, but I'm sure it was only a few seconds, I hit the water and sank into the murky depths. I'm quite sure actually, that the water was no more than about 12 feet or so deep, but I found myself tangled up in what seemed to be long stems and leaves, very much like giant seaweed. I managed to take a deep breath just before I hit the water, which I suppose was a survival instinct. But then, to my horror and alarm, I found that the more I struggled to free myself, the more weeds tightened around me, trapping me even more. I could do nothing else, so I kept struggling, but to no avail. Then I realised my heart was thumping fast against my chest, as if trying to get out. My lungs felt as if they were full of hot coals. Then just before my head felt it was going to explode, my mouth opened, and what very little life-saving air had remained in me was now gone. My whole body then seemed to just relax. I felt like I didn't want to struggle anymore. An inner quietness even overtook me, but my mind kept screaming. I knew I would never leave this water. It would be my grave, my tomb forever. My mind screamed out for my mother as my lungs filled with water. And then, after, I felt nothing. I knew that my life was over, and as my body gave itself up to the cold dark water, my head turned to one side. A one split second before my eyes and my brain finally died, I saw him. The old beggar from the far side of the bridge. He was sitting cross-legged next to me, with his hands in his lap, again with that frightening stare. And as the last remnants of life left my body, I knew then who he was.